Welcome to Roll for Geekiness. I'm Jay and this is A, and we just got back from DragonCon 2021. Yeah, that was a thing. Like it was supposed to be DragonCon 2020 and then that wasn't a thing. So then it was DragonCon 2021.
And DragonCon 2021 wasn't really like DragonCon any other year, so...
It wasn't. So let's, in case you don't know what DragonCon is, let's describe it real quick. Then we can describe what was different about this year compared to other years, and then we'll talk about what we saw. I hoped that I would be able to share all of this with you, maybe with some short video clips on Instagram, because there was no way that even our small camera was going to fit in our luggage with 4 days worth of cosplay for both of us, because we had to fly down to Atlanta, Georgia. And so I thought maybe we'd shoot some stuff on our phones, and we never got around to that. So we're just going to do it all now. Hey! So what's DragonCon?
So informally, DragonCon is a petri dish of geekiness, because it does feel like, which is not great in COVID times, it does feel like you might catch something just by virtue of being with thousands and thousands of other people in cramped spaces. But it also is this lovely collective of all things geek, so that covers everything from sci-fi to comics to cosplay to anime to things around AV recording and editing, makeup, wigs, all of it.
So what do they call themselves? They call themselves a multimedia convention, right?
Yes.
Something like that. I feel like they use some very vague language to describe what DragonCon is. And I think that's fair because there's a lot at DragonCon. There are panels, there are special guests, there is plenty of cosplay and cosplay contests, there's parties in the evenings, and with anything that's been going, this was what, the 30th DragonCon I think we managed to be there for? This was the 30th DragonCon. With anything that's been running that long, there were a lot of inside jokes and cults and funny little things like that are very unique to DragonCon.
I will say I've never been at a party where I saw people in inflatable T-Rex costumes and an inflatable Pikachu costume.
Inflatable Pikachu was epic.
Starting a conga line, that was definitely new for me. So there's a lot.
There's a lot of inflatable T-Rexes. That's one of the cults. What was different this year? So I guess in 2019 there were 80-something thousand people at DragonCon, and this year they capped the attendance at, I've heard conflicting numbers of 42 or 43,000. So about half as many people as are normally there. And I'm sorry, but I'm having a really hard time wrapping my head around how you would put twice as many people in some of the spaces that we saw. I guess to back up, like the DragonCon takes over 5 different hotels that are all within like a 3-block radius of each other. They're in like a 9 city block square.
Everything's like 5 to 10 minutes away from each other in terms of walking, and
Right.
we're talking downtown Atlanta.
Yeah, in downtown Atlanta. And where was I going with that? Yes. So sorry. So yeah, like some of them are kind of a little bit more central than others, and they're definitely like hangout places. And man, those places were just like packed the entire time we're there. Obviously, you could not have fit twice as many people in those spaces. Like the Atrium and the Marriott. But yeah, I think for me anyway, it just felt like if there had been twice as many people there, it would have, feel like it would have felt very crowded, because it kind of felt crowded even under the current circumstances. So I can't even imagine what that would be like with full attendance.
Yeah, I think it would have been very uncomfortable to try to get anywhere. The wait times and lines would have been much longer. And there were already some pretty long waits for the more popular special guests and entertainment panels. So I think it would have been an exercise in a lot of patience if it had been twice as many people. And we both talked throughout the con about the fact that this was already a lot, and if we'd come on a normal year, especially as first timers coming to DragonCon,
Yeah.
we might have gone, what is this? And said, no thank you, we'll find some other conventions to go to.
Yeah, no, I think it had a good vibe overall, but yeah, it was a lot, and I think it would have felt even more overwhelming as newbies. So I think maybe we got in on a good year, and if we were to go back, we would at least feel like we know where we're going and where things are and what times to avoid certain places. Just, you can't get lunch at noon. Like, everyone wants lunch at noon, and I can't even imagine the food court with twice as many people in it. Like, that would have been absurd. But yeah, let's keep going. We've already started kind of describing like what some of our experiences are. We want to loop back around to the top of the list and go through stuff.
Sure. I do want to clarify something real quick. So the vibe was immaculate. It was fine. Everyone was really nice for the most part and friendly, and the actual vibe of the con is very inclusive and mindful, and I appreciated a lot about the way that they structure things and some of the messaging that comes with just going to DragonCon.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, no, I agree.
I think it was more so a point of oversaturation or overstimulation in terms of feeling like it would have been really overwhelming to, for the first time, come into this and have so many things we want to do, so many people and so many new places to navigate. It just would have been a lot on a first go round.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, I just wanted to come back to that because I really loved actually the vibe. I just think it was a lot.
Oh yeah, there were 40 some odd thousand amazing, awesome people there, and I think we'll dig into that a little bit more as we go on. Describe what our experience there was. Share that with you if you've never been or thinking of going or whatever. So what do you think about panels?
So panels were definitely a mixed bag for me personally.
Can I back up just a tiny bit?
No.
Okay.
Just joking.
No. So, I mean, when we're talking about panels, DragonCon has, what did they say? They think they told us in the newbie panel, the newbie Q&A thing that we went to, that there's 30 tracks?
Yes.
I don't know that I saw 30 tracks. There were quite a number of different tracks, and all of them are running programming for the entire 4 days. Mm-hmm. 5 days.
Yes, 5 days.
Thursday through Monday, 5 days. Pardon me. And yeah, so that's a lot of panels, and they cover a lot of ground. And I think the tracks vary too.
Yes.
Because like you'll have a youth track, which is pretty vague, or you'll have the military sci-fi track, which is pretty specific in terms of what it's covering. And then what they talk about and what they have as panels that are related to those things varies widely, and what you can get out of those panels varies widely in my experience anyway. Yeah, sorry. So when we're talking about panels, we're talking about typically a lot of educational content, but there was a lot of entertainment content too, especially if you're looking at the main track. And those can be anywhere from 1 speaker to 6 speakers, all, for an hour to 2 hours talking about a specific subject within that track. So what did you go to? Or what did you enjoy?
That's probably easier to
Yeah.
summarize. So what did I enjoy? I definitely enjoyed some of the panels or events I went to that were entertainment focused. So I got to see Christopher Eccleston, who was my first doctor, and that was really enjoyable. It was an interview with him and some Q&A, and he talked about things I never would have known about his experiences or his life, and it was just really interesting. We went to a Twisted Tunes panel, which
was hilarious.
Which was absolutely hilarious. We went to 2 nights of that because they did kind of a 2-part take on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and had a bunch of voice actors playing different characters for different roles within Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Right. So imagine the voice actors who do Pinky and the Brain as Pinky and the Brain, where Brain is Willy Wonka and Pinky is Charlie. That was actually in one of the scenes. So, like, yeah. Hilarious. Like comedy gold.
Yes, there was some really good improvising in both of those sessions. Not kid friendly sometimes.
No, not
yeah,
so much.
They kind of gave us a bunch of warnings too that
They did.
it really wasn't gonna be. But that was really fun, and we also got to see. I guess this would be entertainment as well. We got to see the BSG cast, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was actually first thing we
Yeah, it
went
was
to.
one of the first panels we went to. It was 5 or 6 of the cast members from Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, that was definitely lovely to see. There was a lot of good energy coming from that panel in particular. So that was a nice way to start the con too, with a really positive and fun experience.
Yeah.
So as far as the educational panels, I really enjoyed some of the makeup focused panels. There's one called Why Am I Sticky? That was really both informative and entertaining. She told us quite a few stories from the industry, and said she's been asked that question many times, why am I sticky? And that's why she entitled the panel that. But she gave a lot of practical feedback or tips and tricks as well for things that you could do with prosthetics, fake blood, makeup and blending. There was a lot of really good tips in there. And I also really enjoyed some of the more AV focused panels that I went to that were about either getting the right equipment for recording or figuring out really how to start a podcast or start your own project if you're doing recording, and taking into account what kind of project you're doing. So there's a lot of beginner information for people who are looking to get into more recording or AV related stuff, but didn't really have a lot of experience or knowledge. So those are my favorites.
Yeah, I was sat in on quite a few of those panels with you too. Obviously, you're the one leaning towards the audio engineering stuff, hence the AV lab that we're working on now. Let's see, what else did I enjoy? I enjoyed, obviously, Twisted Tunes was great. The other one I liked was Adventure Incorporated did a live session with an audience there, and we got to sit in on that, and that was fun. I'd say like my experience with the panels was a little more hit and miss. I went to some of the stuff that was more genre related, and some of that was a little more how do I say it? The speakers kind of went off on some tangents. I think that felt a little less like what I was expecting out of the panel. Maybe that is what they were intending, and they didn't describe it well in the program. I don't know. They were what they were, and I don't say that any of them were bad. Just some of them weren't quite what I was expecting, which is to be expected when you're saying, "Hey, volunteers, come talk about stuff to people." Like, sometimes you get the speakers that they've come back and they've taught sessions year after year, and they're good. And sometimes you need to get some new blood in there every once in a while. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. Or sometimes a panel switches up for a certain topic, and they don't have that kind of chemistry like set up yet, established between them yet. But yeah, so
To loop back real quickly to a point you just made, though, that is important to know about DragonCon and is different, we were told, than a lot of other conventions, is the vast majority of people who help organize and work DragonCon are volunteers. So it's something just to take into consideration that there's no corporate sponsorship or any kind of real huge, I think, fund stream that is.
sure, and I feel, yeah, they did try to make a point of that when we were sitting in the newbie Q&A, and for me that didn't seem out of the ordinary. Every convention that I've been involved with in the past in helping to run or whatever has been entirely volunteer based, so I was like, okay, like everything else I've ever been involved with. But yeah, I guess if you're comparing it to something like New York City Comic Con, that's next year, we'll talk about that in a year. I guess there's some marked differences in terms of how they're run and maybe where the focus is because of where funding or backing is coming from. Not sure.
Yeah, I just, having not been to any conventions before of this sort ever, I was surprised to learn that and would have thought there would have been more people being payrolled at higher levels, and there really isn't.
So special guests, you mentioned that you saw Christopher Eccleston. We talked about seeing all the cast members from Battlestar Galactica. William Shatner was there, which I guess is not unusual.
Yeah, and it sounded like they have, which we did not check out, but it sounded like they have a setup where you can do what's called a Walk of Fame.
Yeah.
So there's a room set aside, writer room set aside for you to basically walk through.
Giant ballroom.
Yeah.
Like one of the huge ballrooms, I think.
And you've got special guests who are sitting at tables, and you get to run the circuit, I think, essentially, to get to say hi to people, was my impression.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. I don't know if there's lines for each of them,
Yeah.
or if you get in one big line. Like we didn't even have time to like go and see what it looked like.
Yes.
So like, I mean, if you want to get things signed, if you want to just be like, you were a huge influence on my life, thank you so much. Like you can do that sort of stuff.
If you want to cry in front of your childhood hero and roll the dice as to how do they reply to that, then you get that opportunity.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I think some of the, when they were in the panels, you could catch up with some of them afterwards. But I imagine like Chris probably just like left the stage when he was done with his, because he had a huge ballroom just to himself, and there would have been way too big a line. That said, like after the second Twisted Tunes, they're like, everyone's going to be over here signing stuff if you want to get in line. Yeah. So, I mean, like, it varies depending on what the talent's preferences are, I guess. Mm-hmm. I'm sure, you know, they're the ones kind of calling the shots with how they're willing to give their time to their fans. So that's a fun thing about DragonCon. So you're saying that, and what I was actually doing while you were trying to remember that actor's name was pulling up the app. DragonCon actually has an app that has the schedule in it. You can kind of pick events and stuff. There's maps of everything. There's all the exhibitors. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's just in the app. You're kind of expected to download the app and wander around with it, because nobody uses. I mean, they give you the paper program when you get your badge from registration, but I don't think we ever cracked the cover, and I don't think too many people do anymore. Like, you could still go old school and pull out the program and a highlighter and post-it notes or whatever and try and manage your schedule that way, but it's so much easier with the app. I did appreciate that.
Yes. Yeah, it was really nice to be able to just pull up your schedule that you'd built for yourself and reference things, and you could obviously put many things on your schedule for the same time block, so that if something was full or you planned on going to something, but now it would require you walking another 15 minutes through these connections between buildings that are pretty crowded. And maybe you just decide you're not up for that, you'd have other options just sitting there. And I will say they were pretty organized too, though, outside of the app, with having signs outside of all of the rooms where events were taking place, with pretty clearly labeled times and titles for all of the panels. So
yeah, so you knew you were in the right place when you got there, and you're like, okay, yep, I'm in the right place.
Yep. And they did keep a lot of the panels within a track. I think tracks were generally located in one area or another. So
Yeah.
if you were really interested in one particular track, you probably wouldn't move very far because you'd be going to panels in the same vicinity.
Yeah, like when we were doing all the digital media stuff, those were in pretty much one of three
Rooms. Yeah.
rooms that were in a lower area of the Hilton. We had to leave that for one of the AV sessions because it was technically part of the Filk track.
Yes. There's lots of interesting stuff at DragonCon. Okay, so that covers panels and special guests.
Indeed. Parties. So there are parties on the schedule too. We went to one early on. It was the '80s party. I'm not so much into dancing to '80s music. Other people are. That's cool. Whatever.
Other people are awesome. Just saying.
Fair enough. But yeah. Yeah, there were lots of parties. Again, because of like the crowds and the atypical year, I think we skipped a few more of them than we might have otherwise, so we can't really speak to those as much as I would like to, but there was pretty much at least one dance party, I think a couple nights, like by Saturday night there might have been two.
There were always a couple parties officially on the schedule going on. I'm sure
Yes.
there were a lot of unofficial parties going on, and I think the atrium of the Marriott was just a 24/7 club from what I could tell, because they literally had people who were giving out beverages or drinks at pretty much every time of the day. I don't know if you noticed that.
There was a bar there and
Yes.
there was a DJ there, and
Yeah.
the DJ was spinning pretty much
All the time.
24/7.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, we were told that's one of the big places that like all the cosplayers hang out, and that was true. We'll loop back to that in a minute. But yeah, I think that was also, like you said, probably. I'm sure later in the evening that was just still
Yeah. So we can't really speak too
cosplay
much
rave.
to the parties, but like I said, the one we went to, I did get to see, I feel like what is a once in a lifetime, for me, probably, event of seeing people in inflatable costumes doing a conga line to 80s music. So
Yeah, I don't know that we'll ever see Pikachu lead a conga line again, like other than at DragonCon.
life's full of possibilities. I never
Life
know.
is a possibility, and you never know what's going to happen. So we touched on cosplay there a little bit. Cosplay is seen as a big thing at DragonCon, and that's obviously one of the reasons why we went. Talk about cosplay?
Yeah, that sounds fun. Yes, so, oh my goodness, so much cosplay. So first off, we each, like Jay said earlier, we did each bring 4 cosplays ourselves, and we tried to be...
And some backups.
Yes, that's true. We brought some backups for some downtime, or I guess if we wanted to opt out. I think we both put a lot of work into our respective characters, so we ended up going with it. I learned the lesson of really think about how many wigs you want to wear and for how long. I had quite a headache at some point from all the wigs I was wearing, but anyways, we can talk more broadly about cosplay and not just about our experience. There were cosplayers of all varieties, all levels of, I'd say, effort or skill. And it was a pretty incredible experience to see the number of people who were dressed up, and the variety of things they covered in doing that.
The variety.
Yeah.
Yes, the variety was... I think that's really the thing for me, is the level of creativity that we saw. Not just in people who put like a lot of time and effort, obviously, into cosplaying a specific character, but the mashups or the just kind of off the wall things, like the guy who was cosplaying the Evergreen cargo ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal. So he was just kind of walking around with this giant ship and intentionally getting it stuck in doorways, or like
That was great.
or things like that, and try not to hold up like crowds behind him too much, but obviously still trying to play the joke. And it's just like, I would have never expected to see somebody cosplay a cargo ship. DragonCon.
Yes, and of course, I think like every year of DragonCon, I'm guessing this is true. There are some things that just recently came out or are more popular that year, so we saw a lot of Loki variants, a lot of TVA authorities and agents, right? And I think that was what we saw the most of, if I think about it.
Yeah. The number of Lokis was bordering on absurd. But yeah, because people were doing the Loki variants again,
Yes.
the creativity was just impressive.
Yeah. Yes. And I think I saw for a few of my costumes several other people who were wearing the same, like some version of that character as well. So I think the creativity, right, helps with people coming up with unique things that they can bring to DragonCon when there are so many people. I mean, there were 40-some thousand people there.
Yeah.
So trying to stand out in any way with your cosplay is difficult, I think, unless you either have a certain amount of skill or effort into things. Like we saw at least one, maybe two really great Mandalorian cosplays.
Yep.
That were really detailed, right, and clearly had taken a lot of time and effort. And those people obviously were getting a lot of requests, I think, for pictures and spent a lot of time, right, in that atrium of Marriott. But I think if you don't have that level of detail or effort into your cosplay, another way to stand out is to do mashups or to do things that are a little bit off kilter. So
yeah, like the stormtrooper that had the Marriott carpet pattern, and the Marriott carpet's another one of those cults. So yeah, they had the Marriott carpet pattern on their armor.
yes.
Yeah, and actually, I guess that's actually on an official DragonCon poster somewhere. So I don't know if they took it from the poster or the other way around. Who knows which came first? Anyway, yeah. I also saw Marriott carpet Deadpool at one point.
And there were people wandering around, like we said, with a lot of really skilled, clearly invested in cosplays, and then there were people who were wandering around with a random cape or a hat or some elf ears or something that was pretty low key. Get it, low key. That was terrible. But something that wasn't really. I guess it would still maybe qualify as some cosplay, but it wasn't necessarily very.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, there were obviously people who were there and like, whatever the costumes you can like buy off Amazon or things like that too. Like nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
Like this is the place to bring it because this is Geek Central. And yeah, and then people who like built Nuka-Cola power armor from Fallout, and it's just like, whoa, that's next level.
And there are definitely people who weren't necessarily cosplaying a particular character, but really were dressing in a certain style or a certain genre.
Yeah, I mean, it's a geek haven. Like, this is where people can come and just be like, I'm going to do my thing for 5 days because I cannot do this back home.
Yeah, and I think it was nice to see that people could just come, like I said, to whatever extent they want to engage, whether that's actually cosplaying a character, just wearing something that they enjoy wearing, just wearing some geeky shirts and hats, which is totally fine too. There really was people running the gamut.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are people who even just came and hung out in like the game areas like all weekend and didn't even like do cosplay or comics or whatever, like, right? I mean, DragonCon runs such the gamut, like you can kind of find whatever you're looking for there and embed yourself in it. Obviously for us that was the cosplay stuff, the making, the AV, maybe some tangential gaming bits here and there, but mostly with the cosplay stuff. So that's what we're talking about. That's probably why you're on our channel, but maybe not. Maybe not. We do a lot of weird stuff on our channel. Cults and inside jokes. So we've talked about a few of them already with the T-Rexes and the Marriott carpet
And this year's cult was the cult of closed for cleaning, I believe.
Ah, yes, closed for cleaning, the closed for cleaning cult. So, right when you looked at the schedule, part of the protocol for this year was to close the large event spaces I never even looked to see how often it was, but they would close them for an hour or two to properly clean everything. So the rooms would just be marked closed for cleaning, but that somehow made it onto the schedule in the app, at least.
Yes.
Probably not in the print schedule, but it was in the app. And so, yeah, people latched onto that one.
So there were people walking around, t-shirts, right? That said, I at least saw one person that had a closed for cleaning t-shirt.
Yeah.
So spray we all.
So spray we all. There were also people who dressed up as giant bottles of Windex and other cleaning supplies, or people that just put on a yellow safety vest kind of thing, and they had this spray we all on the back of those. There was quite a variety expressed by the cult of closed for cleaning.
I kind of get the sense that DragonCon, and I do have no reference points for comparison, but I kind of get the sense that DragonCon is totally cool with a lot of Inception style, self-referential, meta jokes and quirks to it. That's actually a part of participating, is knowing a lot of the little ins and outs and backstories and having the history that you're taking with you.
But I think it's also an interesting expression, again, of the creativity of this bunch of people. Literally, weeks before the event occurs, there's closed for cleaning, and then it becomes a meme, and then people make costumes, and we at least dedicate several hours to wearing them around where people could see them and photograph them and the whole 9 yards. It's just, yeah.
It's impressive.
Yes, the dedication, the creativity.
Do a lot of walking at DragonCon?
Yes. So, right, because it takes up 3x3 grid of city blocks essentially. And yeah, as you mentioned, there's kind of skyways that connect a lot of those buildings, not all of those buildings. Sometimes you have to go outside and then walk down the street a few blocks. But all those sky bridges aren't on the same levels of all those buildings either, so it's fun to be yes, now to get from this building to this building, you have to go across this sky bridge, down 2 floors, across that sky bridge.
Yes.
So, and then yes, you're traversing almost 9 square city blocks to get amongst all of this stuff, unless you're really just focused on one particular area of the programming. Yeah, it can be a lot of walking. I feel like since DragonCon, I saw some people share their Fitbit profiles, up on the Facebook group and stuff, and it's here was before DragonCon, here's DragonCon, here's after DragonCon.
Yep.
It's yeah, there's a lot of ground to cover, and if you're mobility impaired, I'm sure that's more challenging, and you need to give yourself more time to get from point A to point B. There are elevators. The escalators are faster than the elevators. The joke at DragonCon about elevators is if you want to go down, you need to go up, and if you want to go up, you need to go down, because basically, if the elevator stops, you get on it.
Yeah, doesn't matter which way it's going.
Doesn't matter which way it's going, because eventually it'll go where you need it to go, and if you just wait until it's going the right direction, you'll be there forever. Because people just get on the elevator, push their button, and let the elevator sort it out.
I had a blast cosplaying. Like I said, I learned a lot of things about the amount of time it will take me to prepare myself for certain things. Things I hadn't considered around maybe wanting to give my scalp a break or my feet a break. And I think I'm going to use that information going forward with trying to be a little bit more thoughtful about what I wear when and...
Yeah, that's true. This is the first like multi-day cosplay event that we have gone to since we started doing this.
Right, we've gone to a lot of one-day,
yeah,
one-shot events, and which are nice, but the amount of effort, right, to put into that is not the same. So
it's also easier too when we can be based at home, even if we're driving for a couple hours to get somewhere. That's different than being like, we need to get all of our stuff into these suitcases, and that's what we've got.
Yep.
Whatever we remember to get into the suitcases is what we have to work with for the next 5 days.
So, I guess in sum, I'll speak for myself. I had a really great time cosplaying. I look forward to doing more of that. I think the panels were definitely a mixed bag. I would say actually I enjoyed the majority of them.
Mm-hmm.
There were a few, as Jay referenced, that either felt like they kind of got off track or weren't what I expected, but they still weren't bad. They just maybe weren't for me.
Right. Agreed.
And I'd say that on a normal year, like we were saying earlier, I can't imagine what it is like to try to navigate this, but with the number of people that were here or at DragonCon this year, it felt manageable, actually, even though after 4 days I was definitely ready to go home. So, didn't feel quite as overwhelming as I think it would have otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, we're introverts. I'm sure for extroverts this is a great time.
For introverts this is somewhat training, and it definitely, I needed a battery recharge at the end of this. I still feel honestly like I'm recovering a little bit. Yeah, so not for the faint of heart. If you are an introvert, you will probably need to make sure that you're thoughtful about how many things you go try to do or how many people you interact with. Yeah, I would suggest thinking about that.
And if you're cosplaying, like, number of people that you interact with is variable, because we put some effort into our stuff. It wasn't bad. It wasn't like the most spectacular thing, and we were regularly getting stopped to ask for photos and whatnot. So if you've got a pretty decent costume put together, people are going to stop you and ask for a picture.
If you really want a lot of attention, do a really good Lilu costume, and everyone will yell multipass at you and point and do weird shit, and you'll be like, okay, I need a break now. No, that's just my personal story, sorry. If you really want a lot of attention, dress yourself as a good Lilu, and people will readily engage with you because they know that movie and feel comfortable yelling. Anything else you want to add to all of this?
I think you summed it up well. I don't think I have anything else to add to that. It was a good time. It was
worth the trip.
Worth the trip.
Yes.
8 out of 10 would do again.
I would agree with that. 8 out of 10 would do again.
8 out of 10 would do again. Not next year. We have other plans for next year. We'll be sharing those soon. That was DragonCon 2021 for us.
It's a good time. You should check it out and check more of us out in the future. So, actually, you should tease with, at some point we should, in this video maybe we could say something like, you should stay tuned because we are going to be doing more builds, as Jay just said.
Yep.
And There will be some wings involved and
Sounds like.
perhaps some prosthetics. And
Well, definitely some prosthetics.
so it's going to
Yeah.
be a good time.
We've got a couple of big builds coming up now. Like we said, we're getting prepped for events that are happening a year from now. We're starting to put together our plans and figure out what those are going to look like, because we've got some big builds to share, and we will be teasing those on all the social media channels that you are hopefully already following us on, and maybe there'll be some build videos involved with some of that too. We'll get back into doing those.
Yes.
Maybe that would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Build videos. Stay tuned.
Yes.